Last year, I finally played Dark Souls for the very first time. See, I'm trying to get around to playing some classics that I've missed, and Dark Souls casts a longer shadow than most other games of the past 20-ish years. So I figured it was finally time to take a good crack at a real Souls-like for kind of the first time. And I figured what better place to start than the very readily available game that helped push the genre into the mainstream. I haven't stopped thinking about it since then. I've been thinking a lot about my time with the game itself and how it made me feel and what it's meant to me personally. There's all sorts of readings of the game out there, ranging from personal essays about how the game helped the writer grapple with their mental health, to deep, in-depth analysis of the game's item descriptions and how that relates to the lore and unpacking what the game really means. Now, Dark Souls didn't cure my depression, unfortunately. That would have been nice. But what I did come out the other side with is an invaluable lesson that I got from one particular battle. This battle is more challenging than anything else before it. I'm throwing myself at it over and over again with no success. In fact, I'm so fed up with this that I'm debating throwing in the towel and moving on. Turning around questions in my head like, is this sense of accomplishment that I'll get worth the struggle? Is this finally too much for me? Have I bitten off more than I can handle? Am I still even having fun with this? How badly do I really want to see this through? Of course, I'm talking about making a video about Dark Souls. This is a project that I've been working on since early on in my Dark Souls adventure. Now, I didn't go into the game expecting to get a video out of it, but pretty early on I figured that maybe I would have something to say by the time I finished. The initial pitch was to document my experience playing Dark Souls as my very first Souls-like, to see if I could still feel whatever magic from software apparently wove into the game almost 20 years later. A video called, ready? Playing Dark Souls for the first time. But this is not that video, no, this is a video about what Dark Souls means to me. It is about the game's midway skill check fight against Ornstein and Smough and what it taught me about creativity and burnout, resulting in this. Part video essay, part postmortem documentary, but fully a reminder for my future self. This is a video about making a video about Dark Souls.
Only in the ancient legends it is stated that one day an undead shall be chosen to leave the undead asylum in pilgrimage to the land of the ancient lords. Lordran.
Let's start from the beginning of the project so I can set up exactly how I got to this point. The first step in making a video about Dark Souls is to gather the footage and begin to write a script. Now, I don't have a capture card unfortunately, so I had to use the PS4's built-in capture system and then painstakingly transfer the resulting 50-some gigabytes of footage to my PC using only a 16GB USB drive that I found in a drawer. Yes, it took forever. During each session, I took notes in a journal that would become an outline that would eventually become a script. Because that should be easy enough to adapt, right? No. It kinda sucked, actually. Without really intending to, I kinda just wrote a recap of the game, which I did not want to do. Nobody wants to watch a video where the body of the video is all, I went to here and talked to this guy, and then I fought this boss, and then I got this item. No. I didn't want to make that. So with that in mind, I went back to the drawing board to try and write what was essentially several mini video essays in a trench coat, with playing Dark Souls for the first time as kind of a framing device. I came into the Dark Souls project with a lot of optimism and excitement, but honestly, this stretch of writing had me feeling a bit nervous. See, writing about Dark Souls seems to be kind of a rite of passage for anybody who talks about games online, and as a result, it's one of the most discussed games out there, especially on YouTube. With that in mind, I felt like it was important to try and come at the game from a fresh perspective or have something new or interesting to say. But I felt like I was coming up short every time I would try and sit down and write. As I was writing, I resorted to this idea that I could smooth over any imperfections or triteness through raw presentation. This was shaping up to be my most ambitious video yet. I wanted to use way less green screen than I typically do. I wanted to crop to a very specific aspect ratio, and at one point I even contemplated writing a musical score for the video in the style of Dark Souls, which is an insane decision. But the script just wasn't getting there. My new framing device concept had a lot of ideas and felt really overstuffed. And not only that, but every single draft that I would come up with had a word count that stretched up into the tens of thousands, which is way longer than any of my other videos, which is when the self-doubt really set in. Are people going to watch a feature-length video about Dark Souls from a small YouTuber? Have I earned making this video? Was what I have to say about Dark Souls substantive enough to actually justify the runtime? Are my thoughts and opinions even worth sharing? Is this taking too long to make? To answer that last one, yeah, probably. I finished Dark Souls on April 21st, 2025, and then spent the next 10 months writing a script during which I only released, count 'em, 2 videos. I felt like the pressure was on, like this was the Dark Souls video. I felt like I only had one shot at this, which I now know isn't true, by the way. But still, I didn't want to mess it up. I even kind of teased that I was making a Dark Souls video a couple times, so that way maybe if people knew I was making it, it would push me to actually finish the dang thing. But I wasn't really coming up with a script that I was satisfied with. In my head, though, I had this idea that maybe I could put it out in December 2025 during that weird gap between Christmas and New Year. You know the one. But instead, I quietly canceled the video in January 2026 before I even had to finish the script. Canceling the video kind of sucked at first, honestly, but with that behemoth video and its deadlines out of the way, it honestly felt like a weight off. A weight off that was keeping me from enjoying things that would have filled me up. I was able to properly dive into movies that I really wanted to see. I was able to get into games that I was really excited to play. I picked up music for the first time in quite a while. I even contemplated continuing my Dark Souls journey with Dark Souls 2, which my brother very kindly gave to me as I was nearing the end of the first game. Ultimately, though, I decided against it, and honestly, as of recording this, I still haven't played the game. I'll get there. Canceling the video didn't really mean that I stopped thinking about Dark Souls, though. And once the video stopped negatively clouding my thoughts towards the game, there was one battle in particular that really stood out to me. And this isn't a rug pull, by the way. I really am talking about Dark Souls now. About halfway through the game, you've completed your main objectives of ringing the Bells of Awakening. The game's branching paths have funneled you through Sen's Fortress and to the abandoned City of the Gods, Anor Londo. Waiting for you in the Central Cathedral is one of the hardest boss fights in the game. It's a 2v1 against Ornstein and Smough. The smaller one, Ornstein, will usually charge you at the beginning of every fight. And the bigger one, Smough, is way too fast for his size. Naturally, they both have their own unique attacks that they can combo off of one another, and when you defeat one, the other will get stronger to compensate for it. It's an exercise in positioning, spatial awareness, and juggling multiple targets, as well as a tutorial on kind of how to use the layout of the arena to your advantage to isolate them from one another. Now, when I tell you that when I was playing Dark Souls, these two were a test of my patience like nothing else I've ever faced in a video game before. Like, there's only a handful of games that I've never finished because they were too difficult for me, and I really thought that Dark Souls was going to join the club. While I was playing the game, I actually kept track of how many times it took for me to beat each boss in the game, and I threw myself at Ornstein and Smough 47 times over the course of like 3 or 4 nights, which is more than any other fight in the game and its DLC by a wide margin. It hit a point like 30 attempts in where I would walk through the fog gate to start the fight and immediately get destroyed by Ornstein, and I would almost just start crying out of pure frustration and defeat. There was a period though where I walked away from the fight. I explored other parts of the world that caught my interest earlier, I leveled up a bit to boost my stats a bit, but at one point I figured out that you can actually return to Undead Asylum, which is the first area of the game. When I was walking around there, I remembered how I felt playing through the opening section of the game, how tense and dangerous everything felt because of the game's reputation, and how difficult the game's first boss seemed to me as someone who didn't really know what they were doing. I thought about how far I'd come that I was able to now one-shot enemies that had me cowering behind my shield earlier on in the game. I thought about how much I struggled against the Capra Demon and how great it felt to finally beat that fight. And I thought about Quelaag, who I don't think I can show on screen. Quelaag's really cool because while she definitely poses a significant challenge, at least at that part of the game, she doesn't feel insurmountable either, but I also think she's just a lot of fun to fight. She's probably my favorite boss in the game, honestly. But while I was walking around Undead Asylum, I remembered that a lot of bosses will drop their souls when you kill them. And these souls can be given to blacksmiths to be turned into more powerful weapons. I have Quelaag's soul tucked away in my bottomless box, and if I give it to the blacksmith, he can forge it into a much more powerful weapon that will also deal fire damage. So that's exactly what I did. And with my brand new cool as hell flaming sword in tow, I trudged back to Anorlando, ran through that fog gate to start the battle, and made a frankly beautiful discovery. Ornstein and Smough are weak to fire. I spent so much time throwing myself at this boss fight over and over again, thinking each time, maybe this will finally be the one, that I forgot how far I'd come and what kind of tools I had at my disposal to overcome this fight. I even started to kind of forget why I even came to Dark Souls in the first place. I like difficult games. Some of my favorite games are what could be considered difficult, and I wanted to have that sense of accomplishment and satisfaction that comes with playing a difficult game. I wanted to engage with what is, at this point, a classic game. And above all else, I just wanted to have fun playing a really good video game that would really pull me into its world, which Dark Souls absolutely accomplishes. And it took stepping back in-game for me to find that why again. But I didn't realize that that's what needed to happen in real life with the Dark Souls video as well. And that's where this video, the one that you're watching right now, stemmed from, because stepping back from the video helped me realize that, to me, Dark Souls is about the creative process. There's two key ideas that are baked into the gameplay loop of Dark Souls. The first is that on your journey through the game's world, you will inevitably run into a challenge that will kill you. And the second part is what's called the run back. You're incentivized to return to whatever killed you to get your souls back that you dropped on your previous death. Those souls can then be used to level up or buy things that will help you on your journey. But this time around, you've learned a little bit from your prior failures. This time you know that there is a skeleton with a sword waiting on the other side of that door to kill you. This cycle repeats over and over again until you've learned enough and, yes, gotten good enough to overcome whatever challenge Dark Souls will throw at you. You learn over time what kind of tricks Dark Souls has up its sleeve and how to spot them and prepare accordingly. And you do that over and over again for 30 hours, and that's Dark Souls, and it's awesome. The reason that it's awesome is because of the payoff. Repeatedly getting your helmet caved in by the Capra Demon really friggin' sucks, let's be honest. But with each attempt you learn a little more, like how to deal with his attack dogs quickly, or how to run past him to the high ground to set yourself up for a drop stab for big damage. Eventually, all of your knowledge compounds, you win the fight, and the combination of getting the huge victory achieved pop-up and 6,000 EXP being dumped into your wallet pumps so much dopamine into your system that you almost don't care about the struggle that it took to get that. In a similar way, improving at really any skill involves a lot of repetition and practice. Sure, sometimes you hit a roadblock or a gap in your knowledge, but it's important to be able to use that as a learning experience that you can use to do better next time. And then when you run into that problem again, you already kind of have an idea of how to solve it. It's a run back. Eventually, you hopefully end up with something that you're really proud of, and that feels really great, so you do it all over again. But this time, the repetition and commitment to learning from experience has made your skills that much sharper, allowing you to create better and better things as you go, and hopefully struggle less doing it. Of course, creativity doesn't always come easily. there are definitely those times where you just hit a wall over and over again and start to doubt your own ability as a result. Those Ornstein and Smoughs. The mix doesn't quite pass the car test, you can't quite play at full speed, the script doesn't flow the way you want it to. You've tried everything, but nothing is really working, and it's making you want to give it up. But if I've learned anything from my past year making a video about Dark Souls, is that there's a lot of value in those moments of just taking a step back for a fresh perspective. Maybe that perspective is stepping back and realizing what kind of tools and knowledge you have at your disposal that you can use to move forward. Maybe that perspective is looking at your past work with compassion rather than disregarding it as cringe or a flash-in-the-pan stroke of unrefined talent. Here's another fun perspective. Earlier I said that I set out to play Dark Souls to have fun playing a really good video game and get absorbed into a world and have a sense of accomplishment. But I didn't have to beat Dark Souls to get those things. I mean, I did beat Dark Souls, but even if I had walked away, I still got what I wanted out of the game. That's kind of the whole thing. Yeah, of course, it really sucks to get stuck on something, but despite all of the struggles that can come with it, I still enjoy the act of making music, playing an instrument, making a video. Don't get me wrong, finishing things is great. Proving to yourself that you can do something like that is really fantastic and rewarding. And I think if you have the means and the capacity to see something you've started through to the end, you should do it. But lately, I think the journey is just as important. When I look back at everything that I've made, finished or not, over the past 14 years, yeah, I see a lot of weird mixes and odd color grade decisions, but I also see a lot of genuine growth and effort. And dang it, I have fun making this stuff too. And with each project that I've attempted, I've sharpened my skills and stretched myself as a person and as a creative. And it's the journey that does that, not necessarily the destination. The journey, if you can learn to appreciate it, stretches you. It asks you to push yourself and what you're capable of and ask questions and do things that you couldn't do before. Yes, it's an investment that won't always result in a staggering work of creative genius, but if you let it, it will still mold you into a fuller, better, and more beautiful person. And that payoff is always worth it. Alright, well that only took a year to make. Goodness, okay. So, first off, Dark Souls is, of course, fantastic. I realized I didn't really address that at all during the video. The game definitely has a weaker back half, but I had a fantastic time with it overall. I'm really excited to play the rest of the Soulsborne games in the future, but I don't think that I'll be making videos on them anytime soon. But that means the floor is yours. Please post your Dark Souls essays down in the comments. I'll read every single one of them. Everybody reply to at least 2 other essays in the comments, or the assignment will not count as complete. Please and thank you for watching my video in particular. It really means a lot to me that you spent some time here on the channel. Thank you to my subscribers for bearing with me while I made this. I really hope that the wait was worth it. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it. That helps it to reach other people who might also enjoy it. And while I was working on this video, I got really excited and rejuvenated creatively for more videos that will not take a year to make. So if you want to stick around for when those come out, consider subscribing as well. It's free. Thank you again so much for watching my video in particular. My name is matthew.wav. Thank you for watching.